Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Atlanta this week for Georgia Clemson. But like what I want to do is I want to talk some big picture, small picture, but I want to get it in the nitty gritty because exactly what you said. We've had 9 months to react and overreact to this. I think everybody's got their kind of, is Texas going to be, what are they going to be in the SEC? So let's get into some of the more of the weeds. And where I want to start here, where our whole text conversation started was you put out your 12-team playoff last week, Thursday, Friday, whatever it was. I put out mine on Sunday. We have 10 of the same 12 teams, which obviously makes you a genius. That goes without saying. The only two that we don't have, Group of 5 rep, which whatever. I think you have Memphis. I have Liberty, whatever. I have Clemson at number 11, but it's solely because I think the committee is going to go out of their way to try and find a way to put a Big 12 or ACC team in as an at-large, just so it doesn't look what we all know it is, Big 12, SEC dominated, playoff, whatever.
Right.
Why I bring it up. The team that I did not have is the team that I actually want to ask you about, and I'll ask you about Clemson later because you'll see them in person. Tennessee Volunteers. So you live in Tennessee, you know this program as well as anybody. What first of all, they were on the fringe for me. They didn't make the cut, but why are you so excited? I think you probably have been to some practices. I don't know. I know you're close to the program. What are you hearing that has you personally so excited about Tennessee this year?
Yeah, I think that this is a year where they're going to fight for that, 9 through 12 playoff spot. I think that I'll give it to you. For the first time since a while, I mean, even going back to the Pruitt era, Tennessee finally has guys along the defensive line that can cause problems, and they have depth along the defensive line. That was the one biggest thing for me in the past has been, and this is how I phrase it. They haven't had an FU guy that can get off the bus and okay, he's going to cause problems. And so I think now when you got Omari Thomas, you got James Pierce, you got Eason across the line of scrimmage. I think, and I could go on and on, but I think finally they have rotation there. Their secondary bothers me a little bit. I think how young they are, but at the end of the day, it's finally they have it in both trenches. I mean, they're going to have an offensive line. They're going to have running backs, wide receivers. They're churning out pros under the Hypel wide receiver position. So I just think that when you look at the schedule,
yes,
and I think, you going to Oklahoma is going to be an early test, obviously, but you win that game, you get Florida, you get Bama at home. Okay. Split one of those. I just think this is setting up to be like a 2-loss team and one that's fighting for a playoff spot, come the first week of November. And I think what Josh Heupel continues to build in Knoxville is a program where, okay, we know we can get on offense, but it was what can they do on defense? And I think they finally have figured out something, especially the linebacker position. You got Keenan Pili, the guy, the transfer from BYU who couldn't play last year. I think it tore his bicep. I think it was the beginning. So he didn't play. So now they have depth at linebacker, depth on the defense line. I just think this could be a year where everything keeps escalating to Tennessee getting better. Last season at quarterback, Joe Milton. God bless Joe Milton. Everybody in the NFL is kind of figuring out, what
he was going to be the starter there for like 3 days. That's all I saw. He's the best guy at Patriots camp. It's like, if I have to see one more freaking video of him throwing a football out of a stadium, I don't freaking care. Throw a 10-yard out, please. Can we do that? No, you can't.
Right. And covering that shit, and God bless Joe Milton. Like, we'll see what he can do in the NFL. But they got a quarterback in Nico that I think can be a player that he knows Josh Heupel's system, first off, and he has sat there and he has learned. And I think that they're going to give him the reins. They never opened the playbook up last year with Joe Milton. Never. There were specific plays that he would run. And compared to what they were doing with Hendon Hooker, I think now you're going to see an offense, Aaron, that looked like what it did with Hendon Hooker compared to last season with Joe Milton. That's why I'm kind of high on it.
Well, no, I give Josh Heupel credit last year, and I talked about it on the show at the time, is like They went from, and listen, Tennessee fans will say, we're always a line of scrimmage team, but like they had to run the ball last year a lot more,
Yeah.
not because it was a way to open up the deep threat for Hendon Hooker, but because they had no choice. Obviously, you mentioned Nico. For those of us who have ever either never seen him in person, only watched highlights, I was actually covering the Rose Bowl last year during that game against Iowa, so I only saw highlights of him. What do we need to know? What can we expect? What are you hearing out of that building right now?
Yeah, that he has full control of that offense, that he knows exactly what Heupel wants when he steps onto the field. And the other thing too is, with the new play calling system, meaning coaches can call it into the helmets, of the quarterbacks or the linebacker on defense or whoever, that connection, that bond that you have, as somebody told me the other day, it's like Nico's 2 steps in front of Heupel
Oh,
when
wow.
it comes to what he wants to do in the scrimmages that they've seen. Now, he set out the last scrimmage because of a stomach bug, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I just feel like you're going to see a quarterback that they're going to let loose. In last season, they didn't let loose with Joe Milton. And so this year, it's okay, protect yourself in the pocket. Don't get stupid running down the field, like Jaden Daniels would do. Nothing against Jaden Daniels, but the kid didn't know how to slide last year, and he paid for it numerous amounts of times. I think Nico is that type of guy. He can scramble for 10, 15 yards, pick up a first down, but also, the connection with the wide receivers that they have there, I think is so important. And then you look at the offensive line, having his center Cooper Mays back for another year. I think that can't be talked about enough. And so I look at it, and Nico there's going to be times that he flashes. There's going to be times that he manages games. And then there's going to be a couple of times you're like, damn, why'd you throw that ball? Why'd that, what?
Sure.
He's a redshirt freshman. He's 19 years old. Okay. He's going to make mistakes, but I think he can outweigh those with the amount of big plays he can make down the field. And he can hit the ball. He can hit the 40-yard ball, where last year, if a ball went in the air, you didn't know where the hell it was landing. for folks
Probably not in the
Tennessee.
wide receiver's hands, but that's neither here nor there.
Exactly.
Real quick, last one on Tennessee, because I want to get to some other big picture stuff. Obviously, look, any of us who love the sport at least peripherally follow recruiting, and it just felt like every weekend this summer there was big news out of Tennessee. Got a 5-star 2025 quarterback, a 5-star 2026 quarterback, #1 offensive tackle in America. What is it about this program that has them so hot on the recruiting trail? We know, obviously, look, NIL is always going to be a factor, but I truly believe, listen, the offensive tackle chose Tennessee over Ohio State and Nebraska, okay? You can't tell me that NIL is the only reason he chose Tennessee, because I think Ohio State and Nebraska can line up pretty well when it comes to that. So what is it? What is Heupel and his staff selling that has all these kids buying at this point?
I think it's the ability. First off, it's go look at what's going on in the NFL with the players that they've put in. I think at the same time, it's a family atmosphere, something that hasn't been. Everybody on Tennessee's campus is working together for one cause.
That's awesome.
It hasn't always been the case. And it took Heupel, it took Heupel a couple of years to kind of figure out the landscape in Knoxville. It takes time. Who to trust. Putting a staff together inside of a staff. I mean, you look at these college football staffs now. There's 50 guys sitting in on a meeting now. Go ask Billy Napier. So I just feel like they have finally put all the pieces together. Sure, NIL helps. We have seen what Tennessee has done with NIL. Look at their quarterback. Okay. But also they're willing to go out and spend the money if it's the right player. They're not just going to go out and just waste money. It's kind of like the situation, I'm not trying to compare Ole Miss to Tennessee, but with Quinton Junkins from last year, where he's like, the kid wanted 7 figures to come back, but his season didn't represent 7 figure. Tennessee's figured out a way to manage the NIL funds. And I think that is smart. And you're right. David Sanders didn't pick Tennessee just because of NIL. He could have made the same damn money, maybe even more at Nebraska, than he's making at Tennessee. I just think you add in together the fact that it's close. He's in Charlotte. We all know about this about college too. He's just far enough away, 3.5 hours away, to get away from family. But at the same time, I think he understands he can come in there and play as a freshman if needed. And also looking at what Josh Heupel's offense has done, everybody thought Josh was going to come in. They were just going to pass. No, man. Look what they did last year with Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson and Jabari Small. They can run the football as well. And I think that's key for these offensive linemen. So overall recruiting, Josh has got his quarterback for probably the next 2 years with Nico. Then you got George McIntyre. Then you got Faison coming in. I mean, they are building a program at Tennessee that can compete with others around the country. And I think you had to take baby steps. But now, Aaron, they're all in, and it's starting to pay off.